Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Welcome to Sunday's exclusive DCEU Daily. And don't forget, you can keep this conversation going over on my Twitter at Movies TV Mag. So follow me, don't be shy, give me a chat. Do at me, forget the don't at me thing, do at me, have a conversation with me, tell me what you think about my YouTube channel, and if you like the channel, please tell the whole world about it, please. I need people to watch me, I'm that vain. So a little bit later on today, I'll be giving you my David Ayer Instagram theory. Yes, recently David Ayer has created an Instagram and he's posting a lot of stuff we didn't see via his Suicide Squad movie, and I'll be telling you my thoughts on why I think he's doing this. But first, we've got an article. Yes, I'll be reading an article. I'm really sorry. I tried to make it cohesive as possible, but yes, Screen Rant have got a really interesting article here. Joker proves Rotten Tomatoes is biased towards mediocre movies. Really? Really? You've just figured this out? I'll tell you why this article's happened after I read it. So let's give this a read. Joker just became the highest grossing R-rated movie in history after earning rave reviews and audience acclaim. But that may not be readily apparent from a glance at its score on Rotten Tomatoes. The movie currently stands at 69% and recently lost its verified fresh status due to a handful of additional negative reviews, bumping it out of the verified fresh qualification standards. Rotten Tomatoes originated as a way of audiences to find all reviews and opinions on a given movie in a single location, including a quick referenced tomato meter indicating a movie's general favourable versus unfavourable split, with a single percentage score and associated fresh or rotten label, which I think is it's a disgusting concept anyway, and everyone has fallen for it, apart from a few of us who are intelligent, hook, line and sinker. But anyway, percentage score and associated fresh or rotten label. The site's popularity quickly made it a nearly monolithic resource for moviegoers, not me, and the coveted red tomato of a fresh score, or even better, verified fresh status, was quickly embraced by movie marketing, desiring to convince audiences that everyone else loved the movie, so they should too. Unfortunately, the tomato meter also obfuscates, I can't read that word, I'm sorry, a lot of nuance in movie reviews, taking hundreds of words of text in associated 4-star, 5-star out of 10. Now, I want to just interrupt my reading there and tell you it would be very easy, wouldn't it, for a critic to put certain words in a review to make sure that it's either verified fresh or verified rotten, which means they are manipulating the Rotten Tomatoes system, aren't they? Now, Rotten Tomatoes were very quick to change what they did when the fallout of Captain Marvel happened, and they decided to change some of the things that they did. First of all, an audience couldn't review this movie and give it a point system until the movie was actually released. But when it comes to this big flaw in the system, they've done nothing because they are part of the industry. They are part of the studio system. And that, my friends, is the dark truth here. Out of 10, or letter grade given to a movie and erasing all context in a combined ranking. Not only does this hide the more complex views reviewers have about a given movie, but also misrepresents true review scores. And Joker ironically proves just how broken the system is. First of all, a system that merely has a rotten or a fresh kind of thing, right? Basically, it's, you know when you're in court and the judge says you can only say yes and no, but you want to say yes but or no but. It's the same thing as this, isn't it? So where are we? Proves just how broken the system is. Right. Despite some pre-release controversy, Joker's Venice Film Festival premiere was met with a near unanimous praise. Critics were raving, and the movie even brought home the Golden Lion. And I'll say again, this is one of the most prestigious prestigious awards in film. And now, a few months back, one of these kind of bloggers tried to say that mainstream audiences didn't care about the Golden Lion and the Venice Film Festival. Yes, we're intelligent. We know what it is and we know how prestigious it is. And you only tweeted that to try and put shade on the movie because you didn't want the movie to be successful for your own reasons. Anyway, the praise would continue through to the Toronto International Film Festival, where it was met with a slightly less unanimous but still highly positive reception. No. Right, Canada is a very right-on, extreme left country. No question about that. I love Canada. I've been there. It's a beautiful place, but that's the truth. And there was a lot of fallout about Joker at that festival. It was that festival that began the negative kind of narrative. Now, a lot of people who are part of the fandom menace think they were played to promote this movie. They think it was fake outrage just to get a reverse psychological reaction from people. This is simply not the case. The negative narrative started at Toronto. It's as simple as that. And that wasn't done purposely. These people, these shills' opinions are true. Now, it's so hideous to think that a professional critic would purposely vote down a film because it made them feel uncomfortable or there wasn't much representation in the film, but that's what these people are doing. Face it. It wasn't until the lull between film festivals and Joker's October 4th wide release that the negative buzz started to build, primarily from people who had yet to see the film. Fears of the movie inspiring violent acts from incels spread as news of police presence at screenings and even a notice to the National Guard, so funny, began to spread. While this particular complaint didn't seem to be a concern with festival critics, it started popping up more and more with more mainstream reviews. But this is interesting. This is interesting, right? Voting down a film because you had concerns of violence. Because, of course, they didn't have concerns of violence. They wanted to vote the film down because it starred a white man and it was about a white man. And the way the film was done, it wanted to show you what a victim Arthur Fleck is. And they didn't like that. However, despite the growing buzz for controversy, Joker maintains an average review score of 7.24/10 on Rotten Tomatoes. For comparison, here's some other comic book movies in the same ballpark. Shazam 7.29, Deadpool 7.01, Deadpool 2 7.04, Captain Marvel 6.8, what a joke, X-Men First Class 7.37, Thor Ragnarok 7.57, so mostly it's in good company. It's also higher than last year's Best Picture winner Green Book at 7.23. The odd thing is, those movies all have significantly higher tomato meter scores than Joker. Shazam 91%, Deadpool 84%, Deadpool 2 83%, Captain Marvel 78% is pathetic. X-Men First Class 86% and Thor Ragnarok 93%. I like Thor Ragnarok to be honest, but anyway, even within those examples, there's a wide variance in score, but the drop all the way to 69% for Joker is by far the most drastic. To understand the discrepancy between Joker's average review score compared to its tomato meter score, or the relationship between other movies' average score and their tomato meter, it's important to first revisit the purpose of Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes is not at all designed to measure a movie's quality. No, it's not. And I've always known that. And the intelligent members of the film-going community know that too. Unfortunately, the mainstream audience are not totally full of intelligent film-goers, unfortunately. Rotten Tomatoes is designed to measure consensus. Simply put, the tomato meter indicates how much agreement there is over a movie being thumbs up or thumbs down, not the enthusiasm of the thumbs. And there lies the problem. Again, it's the person in court who can only answer yes or no. This is somewhat useful metric for many casual moviegoers. It's not, because it's not accurate. That's the problem as well. Who don't go to the movies often and don't take the time to find or follow reviews they trust. But why do you need somebody else's opinion to go and see a movie or not? You know how I used to judge going to see a movie as a kid and as a teenager? The trailers. I'd watch the trailer, I either liked it or hated it. Either I'd say this is going to be crap or this is going to be good, and I'd go and see it. Why do you need somebody else's opinion? And I know you're kind of being fooled by marketing in a way, but I'd rather do that, go off on a hunch. It wasn't that fun when we were kids, going off on a hunch about a movie. Oh, I think this looks promising. I'm going to go and see this. No, I can't be bothered with this. Won't go and see it. Actually, ends up being good. I'll watch it on VHS. That's how I used to do it. But unfortunately, this generation isn't like that. They're a bunch of drones, and that is a shame. And this is the harmful aspect of the internet and social media, right? They trust. If most approved critics like a movie, it earns a fresh rank. But if most reviewers dislike a movie, it receives a rotten rank. There's a couple of problems with this system, just a couple. First, there's poor communication of the fact that this is what the tomato meter means. Since review scores are already generally provided on a 5 or 10 star basis, most people assume the tomato meter is the same thing as the average review score. Second, the scoring totally, I can't read that word again, any nuance in the actual reviews. A movie with 99.6/10 fresh reviews and 1 6 out of 10 rotten reviewers have the option specifically if their 6 out of 10 is fresh or rotten. Will have an identical score to a movie with 99.10/10 reviews and 1 out of 10 review. Both movies will be 99% fresh, even though one movie clearly has far more positive response. And there is one of the many flaws in the system. This is a wonderful article. In the case of the Joker, there's a number of 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 reviews, giving it a high average review score, but it drew enough negative reactions to tank the tomato meter compared to other movies with a similar average. Some could argue the tomato meter is doing exactly what it's designed to do in this case. No, it's a flawed system which gives critics the opportunity to tank a film by purposely putting certain words and saying certain things to make sure it gets a rotten score. Hey, how do we know some of these critics don't agree with each other? More on that. Maybe they pre-plan their reviews. Who knows? I'm paranoid, aren't I? Exactly what it's designed to do in this case. Different between more a divisive film like Joker and crowd pleasers like Thor Ragnarok. But when the presentation of and discussion around the scores make no effort to differentiate between a movie's quality and how widely appreciated it is, the original intent of the tomato meter is, it's arbitrary. I just can't read certain words, I'm sorry. While Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter and the true critical evaluation of a movie are often in alignment for movies where the critics themselves are generally in alignment, divisive or polarizing movies have always been unfairly knocked by the Rotten Tomatoes system. There's always been hypothetical examples of a movie that could get very high marks from a number of critics, yet still get low score from a tomato meter. But that kind of split in Rotten Tomatoes scores is often between the audience rating and the critical rating. It doesn't throw off the tomato meter in the same spectacular fashion as Joker. Comparing to a recent movie like Captain Marvel, which had its own share of Rotten Tomatoes controversies, shows where the scoring system truly breaks down. Joker stands at 69% from 500 reviews with a 7.26 average, while Captain Marvel stands at 78% from 497 reviews with a 6.8 average. This is divergence. This divergence is fascinating and of itself, but a look at the score from strictly top critics is even more revealing. Joker was reviewed by 51 of Rotten Tomatoes' top critics, with an average of 6.67, while Captain Marvel's 49 top critic reviews landed it at 6.2. Yet Joker's top critic tomato meter is very rotten, 45%, while Captain Marvel is fresh at 61%. Already, you can see what's going on here, the corruption, and they're looking into this. This is great, and we criticize Access Media, but when Access Media work for us, we should use them because this is truth telling. But they haven't done anything fascinating here. They haven't broke the fourth wall. This is something I always knew. I have never relied on Rotten Tomatoes to tell me what I should go and not go and watch. And it's very frightening to look at this generation treating this site as God. Shall I go? Shall I not go? It's like the magic 8 ball, shaking it and letting it decide for you what you're going to do. Shall I shag my girlfriend tonight or not? Ridiculous. In this particular case, the Metacritic, while it faces a very similar issue with its scoring system, provides a more granular breakdown of its scores, which could help understand why the numbers behave in such a counterintuitive way. Obviously, this isn't the same data as Rotten Tomatoes, but it's not a stretch to presume some consistency between scores reviewers submit to both aggregators. In Metric System, Joker and Captain Marvel both have 32 positive reviews. The difference is Joker's non-positive reactions are broken down as 15 mixed reviews and 11 negative reviews, where Captain Marvel has 23 mixed reviews and only 1 negative. Do you see how they can manipulate the system? Digging deeper, Joker's 32 positive reviews are comprised of 8 reviews hitting perfect 100 score, 4 reviews at 95, more at 88, 2 at 83, 4 at 80, 1 at 78, 3 at 75 and 1 at 70, 1 at 67 and 3 at 63 for an average of 84. Comparatively, Captain Marvel's 32 positive reviews include 3 at 90, 1 at 89, 2 at 88, 1 at 83, 5 at 80 and 1 at 78, 8 at 75, 5 at 70, 2 at 67 and 4 at 63 for an average of 76. When it comes to mixed reviews, Joker has 15 comprised of 2 at 60, 1 at 58, 1 at 55, 8 at 50 and 1 at 45 and 2 at 40 for an average of 50.5. Captain Marvel has 23 mixed reviews, 13 at 60, 80 at 50, 1 at 42, 1 at 40, an average of 54.8. Joker's 11 negative reviews come from 2 at 38, 6 at 30 and 3 at 20 for an average of 28.7. Captain Marvel has 1 negative review at 38 with the same average, obviously. Captain Marvel, an average made mediocre movie. Can you see how it's corrupted? You are being played. Do not go on that site. Don't you understand what's going on here? I don't care if you're an average moviegoer, an MCU stan or a DC stan, you shouldn't be using this site as your god, as your magic 8 ball, whether you're going to go and see a film or not. Getting out of the nitty-gritty of the numbers, what we have here is a situation where Joker's positive reviews were far more positive than Captain Marvel's, including many perfect scores, but its mixed and negative reviews were decidedly more negative. Not to pick on Captain Marvel, no, of course not. You don't want to ensue the wrath of Disney now, do you? So we also gave it a positive review. Yeah, you gave it a positive review. Of course, you're part of the system Screen Rant, and it saw its fair share at box office receipts. I don't care about the box office. I really don't. Captain Marvel got $1 billion at the box office because it was right before Avengers Endgame. That's why Larson was allowed to go out and be racist, sexist and ageist, because it wasn't going to hurt the movie. Yes, the fandom menace tried their best to derail the movie, but it was never going to work because of where it was situated. And its box office success had nothing to do with the quality of the content we were watching. But breaking down the actual review data shows a drastically different picture than the singular aggregate review score. It may be useful for some moviegoers to know a movie like Captain Marvel is a safer or generally more appealing movie. Yes, because it's part of the MCU, the most successful franchise of all time, not because it's a good movie. Anyway. But that score also hides the fact that Joker has numerous reviews giving it a perfect score. The information is obviously available, but it takes more digging than most people are interested in doing. That's the point. They know people ain't going to dig for the facts and the figures. Rotten Tomatoes is successful because you can go on there and it says rotten or fresh, and then you literally, like an idiot, go, right, I'm either going to see this or not because of what they're telling me to do. And you have been manipulated. They have cleverly manipulated you. It's like the creators of Fortnite manipulating kids. They're easy prey. People are stupid. It's as simple as that. The unfortunate impact is Rotten Tomatoes and other review aggregators regularly give major boosts to movies where reviewers generally lean in a more positive direction. But few people react negatively by presenting them as having a higher score than movies that were genuinely reviewed better, yet elicited more negative responses. At the end of the day, everyone has unique tastes, and that includes movie critics. So the notion of taking all those disparate opinions on a movie, distilling it down into a simple thumbs up or down, then aggregating that into an average approval rating and expecting it to be applicable to individual audience members seems very backward. Yes, it is backward, but it's very clever if you're on the side of the studios. Yes, of course, some movies that studios are making are getting a thumbs down, but they don't care. They don't care because more often than not, they can manipulate the system later on when they go to Blu-ray and DVD anyway. That into an average approval rating and expecting it to be applicable to individual audience members seems very backwards. As always, audiences are better off finding a particular reviewer or outlet they tend to agree with and trusting in their reviews. Or even better, take a risk and go and see a movie with an exciting premise, cool marketing, or an actor or director you like, and form your own opinion. In other words, what this person, I'm going to look for their name in a minute, what this person is telling you there, don't trust critics. Make your own minds up. It's time to make the role of the critic redundant. It's time to put them out on the street because they are manipulators, they are corruptors, not just critics, bloggers, Collider are one of the worst. They'll sit there saying Spider-Man Far From Home is one of the best CBMs they've ever seen, giving it 5 stars when they know it's a pile of shit because they're part of the system. That's the problem. And that, my friends, is a brilliant article. It really does show you how corrupt these aggregators are. Now, I don't care if it's one site or the other. Rotten Tomatoes are selling you literally a rotten tomato. Look at the aggregate score for Batman v Superman. All of a sudden, people think nobody likes this film. A lot of people like Batman v Superman. Same with Man of Steel. There's a lot of rotten scores that are actually put next to really, really good films. And as we know, a film is a personal thing. Some people will like it, some people won't. But what happens is these days, you're either fresh or rotten, you've either got $1 billion at the box office or you haven't. And this is what this yes or no kind of generation is like. They will tell you your movie you love is crap because it's got a rotten rating on Rotten Tomatoes, or that it didn't make $1 billion at the box office. That's all they look at. This generation don't care whether a film's actually all good or not, because they're supporting franchises rather than individual films. And this is the point, and I keep on saying this, what Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola are trying to say. This is highly damaging for the industry. So why have Screen Rant tried to expose Rotten Tomatoes all of a sudden? Because that, my friends, is what they're doing. They're doing it very politely. They're not saying that's what they're trying to do. And it will be very interesting, shall I say, let me get my words out properly for once. Interesting who Screen Rant are affiliated with. But I would go deeper than that. I don't think it matters who they're affiliated with, because at the end of the day, the worm is turning. All of a sudden, the MCU is getting a lot of criticism. All of a sudden, this film, The Joker, is going to finish off with just under $1 billion. Maybe it will just hit $1 billion. Who knows what's going to happen? It could even get an extended cinema run. Nobody knows. It happened with Fatal Attraction 30 years ago. I mean, that film seemed to be in the cinema forever. But the point being is the worm is turning. Now, this may not, you may not think this has anything to do with the MCU, but it does. It has everything to do with the MCU, because most of their films are automatically verified fresh. But why? Why? We all know Spider-Man Far From Home should have a rotten score. If critics were honest and genuine people, that film would be rotten, because it is rotten to the core. It is a dull, boring, uninspirational, lazy film, as I said in my review yesterday, right? That's what it is. But it's verified fresh. It made over $1 billion. How can that be possible? The $1 billion thing, people are just supporting. This is Spider-Man, for crying out loud. Say it should be making $1 billion. But it doesn't deserve its fresh rating, because it's a bad, dull, boring movie, and it does nothing for me and it does nothing for you. And even if you say you liked it, you're lying, because you're supporting a franchise. You're not even supporting Spider-Man. When a lot of us found out that Spider-Man was going to go back to Sony exclusively, we were happy, because we know that the MCU are actually damaging Spider-Man, because all they want to do is forward the franchise rather than the character. And this is why Screen Rant did this, because the worm is turning against Disney and Marvel Studios. All of a sudden, people are seeing that what Walter Hamada is doing is genius. This film, The Joker, that makes amazing social commentary, the correct social commentary. It's a brilliant version of The Joker. The worm is turning towards DC, my friends. And next year is going to be a very, very big year in the war between DC and Marvel. And it is a war. Forget about what the studios and the creatives say. We all want to be friends. Now we don't want to be friends. It's DC versus Marvel. It's as simple as that. And it's a big year. Next year, DC have got Birds of Prey, The Emancipation of One, Harley Quinn. It's going to be a success. Wonder Woman 1984 is going to be a big success. Now you counter that with The Eternals, which mainstream audiences have never heard of, and Black Widow. Now this is interesting, very interesting, because I think Black Widow's come too late. Black Widow should have come after Incredible Hulk or something. Then it would have had a maximum effect. Everybody knows that Feige never trusted Scarlett to lead her own film, which is ridiculous, seeing that she stood toe-to-toe with Bill Murray and won an Oscar for it, right? But, you know, Mr. Feige, who claims he's supporting representation and female leads, never supported her. She was the first female hero on that franchise, and he never gave her own film. So next year is very, very important for the war between DC and Marvel, and I really believe that both DCEU films are going to crush the MCU, not only at the box office, but by critics as well. So very interesting year, because DC have got something else in their favour. These are two female-led movies. Interesting, isn't it? So publicly, DC and Warner Brothers can push that. Now, obviously, Black Widow is a female-led movie, but the war here is, and this is how you win and lose this. Who's going to be the better female-led movie? Now, I don't really care about representation. I believe representation is important. I think it should happen quietly, where the art and the storytelling should take centre stage. But I'm not someone who cares if there's representation in a movie or not. After all, I'm Greek Cypriot, and they're not going to put any of my people in films, so I don't give a shit, right? Anyway, so the war, DC versus Marvel, very, very interesting, very important. And if you don't think it's important, you're neither a DC fan or a Marvel fan. DC are going to win next year. Remember, bookmark this video, just like what my predictions about the Joker that you all scoffed at. Remember this video, because we're going to go back to it this time next year. Now, finally today, we're going to talk about David Ayer and his Suicide Squad movie that was out in 2016. Now, Zack Snyder has been very, very successful by opening up a Vero account, posting pictures and teasers of his cut of Justice League. It's been very popular in the fight to release the Snyder Cut. So all of a sudden, David Ayer's Instagram has showed up. I don't know if he's always had an Instagram. I think he's opened it up recently, and he's starting posting pictures of his Suicide Squad 2, mostly of Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, and Jared Leto's Joker. Now, this is very interesting, because a lot of people from the DCEU purists have always kind of said we would also like an Ayer cut of Suicide Squad, because it's common knowledge the film that was released in theatres wasn't his complete vision. And even the extended cut didn't go far enough. So everyone would like that to happen. And I just think that David Ayer has seen what Zack's doing, and he's very successful in the fight to release the Snyder Cut with national media as well. So he thought, why don't I do this? But has David Ayer heard that the Snyder Cut's being released? And maybe he's thinking, just before it's announced, if I start doing this now, people will also support release the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. Just a little theory, boys and girls. What do you think of that? So please comment down below. What do you think of that amazing Screen Rant article? I think it's very telling. The worm is turning, and the moral of the story here is make your own minds up about movies. I shall see you tomorrow with more DCEU Daily. See you then. Have a nice Sunday.